people, welcome back to my channel. My name is Megan. In today's video, I am starting another Explain the Plot series. The last series I did was on A Good Girl's Guide to Murder trilogy, which I absolutely loved. And now I'm starting another one based on another popular YA mystery series, and that is The Naturals by Jennifer Lynn Barnes. This is a 4-book series, and it was pitched as a YA Criminal Minds, and that pitch is perfect, okay? It is exactly YA Criminal Minds. I absolutely loved it. Now let's get into explaining the plot. I do this because it takes me a while to read series between this book and the next book. You know, I read so many books in between that I forget what happens. So I do these videos so I don't forget, so you don't forget. So let's get into it. Let's explain the plot because this was a fun one. We start off this book meeting our main character, Cassie. She is a waitress in a diner. She is a teenager, and she lives with her grandparents because her dad is in the Air Force. He lives halfway around the world, and her mother is missing, presumed dead. And we also learn that Cassie has this natural ability to read people. She's very perceptive, and she can make inferences of people based on their behavior, the way they dress, and the way they act. One day during her shift, she notices a strange country club looking boy in the diner, kind of different from all her other patrons. When she asked what he wants for food, he's like, oh, what do you think I want? What kind of eggs do you think I want? How do you think I want my eggs? And she's kind of like, what? This is weird. Why is he asking me what kind of eggs he wants? Like, this is all very strange. But she goes, she puts in an order, she comes back, and he is gone. And in his place, he left a business card that says Special Agent Tanner Briggs, FBI. Cassie is caught off guard thinking, why does the FBI want to talk to me? And then she thinks back to her mother's case, how she is presumed dead. And she thinks back to the night her mother went missing. She was in her dressing room preparing for her show, and Cassie was in there with her. Cassie went to go into the crowd to kind of scope things out, and then when she came back to her mother's dressing room, her mother was gone, and there was blood all over the walls, and the amount of blood that was there led the police to presume her to be dead. Again, not knowing what the FBI really wants with her, but assuming it's about her mother's case, she decides to go to the meeting with Special Agent Briggs, where he tells her about the Naturals program and informs her that she herself is a natural. He tells her that she has a natural ability to profile people, to look at people and draw inferences about who they are and what they want based on the way they look and based on their behavior. And this is where he formally asks her to join the Naturals program. During this meeting, Briggs tells her that the country club looking boy from the diner is Michael, and he is a natural emotion reader. He also informs her there is another natural at the house who is like a walking encyclopedia. She is a natural at seeing patterns and probabilities everywhere she looks. So everybody is a natural with a natural ability. So the FBI wants to use these naturals, who are all teenagers, to catch serial killers, but because they are minors, they're not going to be working on any active cases. They strictly work on cold cases. So they read case files and they try to figure out what happened, because the FBI no longer puts resources towards these cases, so the kids are the perfect opportunity to kind of hone in on their skills and crack these cases. Cassie agrees to join the program, and she goes to the house where all the naturals lives, and she meets Special Agent Lacey Locke, who is Briggs' partner, and then she also meets the other naturals that are in the program. Now, Special Agent Locke is also a profiler, although she is not a natural profiler, she is a profiler, so she is going to be the one in charge of Cassie's training. She also meets Jude, who is the owner of the house and is the caretaker of the house, who cooks all the meals for the naturals that live there, and then she goes on to meet the naturals of the house. She meets her roommate Sloan, who Briggs previously referred to as the walking encyclopedia, who can see probabilities and patterns everywhere. She is introduced to Dean, who is another natural profiler, and of course there is Michael there. And then she meets Leah, who is a natural liar, so she can tell when people are lying, and she can also herself lie really well. Because Dean is another natural profiler, he is the one that she is going to be working side by side with during their training, and their first day of training takes place at the West Side Mall. Cassie's a little bit bored during this training because Special Agent Locke basically just has her profiling shoppers, like, who do you think owns that car? What store are they shopping at? What do they want? And she's like, excuse me, I came here to solve crimes, not profile random civilians. Like, what is going on? This is boring. Let's move on. Their next meeting is at night during a fake crime scene, a mock crime scene, and she's working with Dean, and this is where Dean warns her off, and he's like, hey, you shouldn't be here. This is not a place you want to be. I don't know why you're here. Basically insinuating that Dean doesn't have a choice in being there and that he doesn't want her anywhere near this. kind of giving off those protective vibes, and this is kind of where their romance, kind of flirtation, their will they won't they kind of starts. Through their training, Special Agent Locke is really teaching Cassie how to hone in on her skills, so they take her back to the mall to solve a kidnapping case. Now this is a kidnapping case the FBI has already solved. She wants to see Cassie's ability to solve this case with the information that she gives her, and Cassie succeeds in figuring out the case. Next lesson, Cassie learns the difference between an MO and a signature. Now an MO stands for mode of operation, and this is how the perpetrator commits their crime, and in this case we're focusing on serial killers, so this is how the killer commits his crimes, the methodology he uses, the victims that he profiles, the location, the time in between each killing, what time of day he normally does it, all these different factors, that is referred to as the mode of operation, and this is something that can change throughout time, throughout their kind of killing career. They can kind of change the mode of operation in which they commit these crimes, but then there is the signature, and this is the psychological part of the killing. This is why the killer does what he does, and the signature always stays the same. So basically what she is teaching Cassie is like, if you can look at different crime scene photos, although they don't look like the same killer, how can we tell that they are the same killer? During this, Cassie kept saying he and is referring to the killer, trying to put herself in the killer's shoes. She's like, he does this, and Dean is like, no, do not say he. First of all, we shouldn't gender the killer because we don't know who the killer is. So first of all, you don't want to just say like he, because what if you're saying he and then the killer turns out to be a girl? And then secondly, you need to put yourself in the shoes of the killer and you need to think like the killer. So instead of saying he or she, say I. Like I. Put yourself in the killer's shoe and say I. And during that time, Cassie is really thinking about the mental toll this is going to take on her. All the naturals get together to kind of blow off steam, hang out, form their friendships and bonds, and they decide to do this with a game of truth or dare. During this truth or dare, Cassie ends up kissing Dean, and Michael's giving them the side eye, clearly jealous, and this is where our love triangle is kind of forming, because she's had flirtations with both of them. You kind of want her to be with both of them, but now she kisses Dean, and Michael is kind of being a little bit jealous, so he lashes out, and he's giving us a little sneak peek into who Dean really is, because he makes a comment to Dean about like some scary movie, like, oh, have you ever seen the movie The Bad Scene? And then Dean freaks out and storms out, and Cassie, she's like on high alert. She's like, wait, why did he storm out? Why did that trigger him? What is going on? Why does he not want to be here? Why is he here? What is he hiding? Because there's clearly something more going on with Dean. But she doesn't have much time to contemplate Dean, because she is on to the next day and the next lesson with Dean and Detective Locke. I keep calling her Detective Locke, but it's Special Agent Locke. So she is on to the next lesson where they are learning all about victimology, and during this she's kind of having flashbacks to her mother's crime scene, and she starts to think, well, maybe my mother isn't actually dead, right? She is presumed dead by police because the amount of blood in the room, but she's like, what if my mother isn't actually dead? What if the person who attacked her while I was gone, and which is definitely true, she definitely attacked her while Cassie was gone, but Cassie's thinking like, what if my mother didn't actually die? What if my mother purposely left with the perpetrator because she didn't want me, her daughter, walking into a bad situation, a dangerous situation, so she willingly left with the perpetrator? But during her deep thinking, during this lesson, it is interrupted by Special Agent Briggs, who informs Locke that another body has been found. This is a case that has been going on in the background that the kids didn't know much about, but is now being brought to their attention, that there is an active case that Briggs and Locke are working on, and Cassie wants in on the action, but Locke is like, absolutely not. Your training is nowhere near complete. You're also a minor, so you're not working on an active case. Now, while Briggs and Locke are away, Cassie is reading through old case files, and this is where she learns the secret of Dean. What has he been hiding? And she finds out that Dean's dad was a serial killer, and that is presumably why Dean is in the Naturals program. So she goes to confront Dean with this information, which obviously doesn't go well because people don't really want you to bring up their trauma to them. Like, Cassie, why would you bring this up to him without like him telling you? You know, you want people to confide in you. You don't just want to like blast their trauma all over the place. But she decides to confront him. It doesn't go well, and that kind of throws a strain in their relationship. Another thing that happens while they are away, Sloane, who is a kleptomaniac, which I don't think I have mentioned yet, she likes to pickpocket and steal things. She mentions before Locke left, she stole a USB out of her briefcase. So they decide, let's plug this USB into the computer. Let's see what case that Briggs and Locke are working on behind the scenes. And then they see files of 7 different victims. They look at the crime scene photos and Cassie is taken aback because she realizes there's a pattern amongst the victims. They all have red hair, they all were attacked with a knife, and they all claim to be psychics. And this profile speaks to her because this is exactly who her mother was. Now she thinks there's a connection between this serial killer and her mother. Cassie tries to tell Special Agent Briggs the connection that she is seeing, and he does not want to hear of any of it. He says, "You're getting nowhere near this case. Again, you are a minor. You are not working on an active serial killer case." Interspersed between all the different chapters, we are getting the killer's inner monologue. We're kind of learning information slowly over time, but by this point we have a pretty good idea that this killer has something to do with the death of Cassie's mother, and not only that, but this killer now is specifically targeting Cassie. After we learn this information, a package arrives at the house for Cassie, and she is really confused by this because nobody knows where she is, where house she is at, and the package just simply says, "From me to you." She opens the package and screams because it is a piece of red hair. Now remember, the victims that they just saw the photos with all had red hair. Cassie's mom also has red hair. Briggs and Locke kind of freak out over this, come to the house to investigate this package, and while they were there, they get a phone call that there has been another body found and that the piece of hair in the box actually matches the victim of the new body. And they piece it together that Cassie was right all along, that this killer has something to do with her mother's death. FBI puts Cassie on lockdown, trying to keep her safe, so Leah comes in the room to try to cheer her up, and she's like, "Girl, let's do makeovers." So she brings this bag filled with all this new makeup. Cassie's kind of going through all this new makeup, but then she stops at the lipstick and she's staring at it because this is the same exact brand and shade of lipstick that her mother wore. So she grills Leah on like, "Why did you choose this lipstick? Where did this come from? Did somebody give this to you? Did someone tell you specifically to buy this type of lipstick? Like what is going on here? Because this cannot be a coincidence." And Leah just brushes her off like, "No, like don't worry about it. Like I just got it from the store. Like what are you freaking out about?" But this is, although Cassie lets it go, it's still lingering in the back of her mind that this cannot be a coincidence. This case is going on, and then the same exact brand and shade of lipstick shows up in her house. Part of Cassie's lockdown is she cannot have any mail that is not first analyzed by the police, but Sloane, being a kleptomaniac, decides to steal a package. Sloane steals a package addressed to herself. She's like, "I don't need the cops going through my stuff." And the killer obviously knows that one, Sloane is a kleptomaniac because he sends a message to Cassie through Sloane's mail. So the killer had the thought that, okay, Sloane the kleptomaniac will probably steal her package, which means I can send a message to Cassie through Sloane's mail. When they open the package, they discover a lock of blonde hair and a picture of the victim holding up a newspaper from the previous day indicating that she's still alive. So the killer is now escalating because instead of just killing and leaving a body, he now has a hostage. And then Cassie thinks to herself, "You took her because they took me." Her thought is because the FBI has her on lockdown and she is not even allowed to see the outside world, that the killer now has lost access to Cassie, and that is what he wants. He wants access to Cassie. He's not able to see her. He's not able to contact her. So he took this girl in retaliation for the FBI taking Cassie away from the killer. We learn the identity of the victim is Genevieve, who is the daughter of a US senator, so a very high profile victim. And they believe the killer picked such a high profile victim so that the FBI would be forced to kind of involve Cassie in the case and give him what he wants. So Cassie says, "Let's give him what he wants, let's give him me," but not in a literal sense like I'm handing myself over to the killer, but in the sense of I want to go to the crime scene, you have to get me out in public so the killer feels like he has access to me. So Cassie, Dean, Sloane, Locke, and Briggs all go to the club, which is the crime scene. This is the club where Genevieve was taken from, and they realize that she must have been drugged and stolen from the bathroom, taken out the back door, all in 9 seconds, so nobody would ever see what happened. They're like, "Okay, we kind of wrapped up what's happened here, we gotta go." And Cassie's like, no, we cannot leave yet because the killer wanted me out of the house. He wanted me here. He obviously wants me to find something. We cannot go yet. And that's when she discovers a phone number and a message written on the back of the bathroom stall. The message says, "For a good time, call 567-3524. Guaranteed +1, cola and thorn." Sloane, being the natural at seeing patterns and probabilities, she is able to decode the message and realizes that the number is actually spelling out Lorelei. The phone number spelled out Lorelei, and cola and thorn is an anagram for North Oakland. Now, North Oakland is where Cassie's mother was murdered, so she's like, "We have to find a theater." So Cassie says, "We have to find a theater because that is where the victim is going to be." So at the theater, they do discover a victim. Now, it's not Genevieve the hostage, it is another victim that follows photos, the profile, red hair, knife attack. Cassie walks into this crime scene and realizes that this crime scene looks identical to the crime scene of her mother's crime scene, down to the smudge of blood on the light switch. And now Cassie has this realization that this isn't about her mother and her mother's disappearance. This is what she's been thinking her whole time. But now she's realizing that the killer is really focused on her, right? Because the killer is bringing her to this crime scene that looks identical to her mother's crime scene, making Cassie relive the worst day of her life. Cassie's at home dwelling on this idea that the killer isn't focusing on her mother. She's focusing on me. He's focusing on me reliving the worst day of my life. What does he want from me? When Dean walks into Cassie's room with crime scene photos from her mother's case, and they're looking at these photos and they realize that this wasn't a meticulously planned out murder. This was a crime of emotion. And then Cassie also notices something in the crime scene photos. She notices the smudge of blood on the light switch, and she has a flashback to the day that she found the crime scene. And she remembers that when she walked into the dressing room, everything was dark and she touched something sticky, and that she put her hand on the light switch. So Cassie is the one who put the blood on the light switch, meaning that the killer would not have known that there would be blood on the light switch because Cassie is the one who put it there, and the killer was already gone by the time that Cassie got back, which means the killer had to see these crime scene photos in order to set up that crime scene. Now Cassie's like, oh my god, so the killer has seen these crime scene photos, and now she's thinking about the lipstick again. She goes to Leah, she's like, Leah, you have to tell me the truth about the lipstick. I know you were lying. I'm a natural profiler. I have perception, and you are a liar, but even though you're a good liar, I can tell when you are lying. You're lying to me. Where did you get this lipstick? And then Leah admits that she just found all the makeup on her bed, and she assumes Sloan, the kleptomaniac, went and stole all this makeup and just left it there. But now Cassie's like, oh my god, somebody left it on your bed? And she's like, wait. So they saw the crime scene photos, they know my mother's lipstick shade and left it in the house, meaning the killer has been in the house. Cassie, freaking out, calls Special Agent Locke, and she tells her to grab Dean and go to the FBI safe house because either there's a leak in the FBI or the unsub is in the house with her right now. Dean and Cassie arrive at the safe house, and so does Michael with a gun. So now Cassie is reeling because Michael is someone she likes, she's had this flirtation with, that she is trusted, and she's like, oh my god, the unsub was been in our house the whole time. It must be Michael. And why did he follow me and Dean here with a gun? So now she's reeling, thinking that Michael could potentially be the perpetrator, the person that they've been searching for this whole time. But Michael's like, no, I'm not the bad guy. I just came here because I wanted to protect you. I saw you guys leaving. I saw you guys leaving with a gun. I didn't know what was going on. I care for you. I just wanted to protect you. And in the midst of all this chaos and confusion, Michael is shot, and Dean is holding the gun at the shooter, and the shooter is Detective Lacey Locke. Special Agent Lacey Locke. I don't know why I keep saying detective. Locke then knocks Dean unconscious and reveals herself to be the mastermind and the killer of everything that has been going on. Special Agent Locke reveals that she is the one who put Cassie on Briggs's radar to join the Naturals program. She wanted her to be in the program, and then she admits once she started working with Cassie, she realized that not only could she be her protege as a profiler for the FBI, but she could be her serial killer protege and follow in her footsteps. And then she brings Genevieve into the room, and she says, Cassie, Genevieve, here you go. Genevieve is my gift to you. She can be your first victim, and we can do this together. So Cassie is freaking out, and she kind of leans down to Genevieve and whispers in her ear, like, hey, don't worry, like, I'm not actually gonna hurt you. And then Genevieve tells her, like, no, please just end my misery. This is absolutely terrible. Locke is fed up with how much time this is taking. She's fed up with Cassie's reluctance. She takes the knife from Cassie's hand, and she decides to do the job herself. In her end of story villain monologue, Locke reveals herself to be Lorelai's sister. So again, Lorelai is Cassie's mom. So Cassie's mom's sister. So she is basically revealing herself to be Cassie's aunt. She admits to being so angry at Lorelai because they were sisters, and growing up they had an abusive father, but Lorelai, being the older sister, always took the brunt of the punishment, the brunt of the abuse. But then Lorelai became pregnant with Cassie, and when she became pregnant with Cassie, she ran away with home, leaving Lacey Locke there defenseless. Locke has a lot of resentment for her sister for leaving her in a bad situation, and she vowed to get revenge on her. But by the time she was able to track down her sister, she had already been murdered. That is when she started tracking down victims that looked like Lorelai to get revenge on her sister, because she couldn't actually get revenge on her sister because her sister was already gone. And while all this is happening, Michael is able to grab a hold of the gun, a shot rings out, and Detective Locke is dead. So now to recap all that, we have Lacey Locke, and we have Lorelai, and we have Cassie. Lorelai became pregnant pregnant with Cassie, so she ran away, leaving Lacey to be abused by their father. Lacey wants to seek revenge on Lorelai. As an adult, she tracks her down, but Lorelai has already been dead, so now she gets revenge by killing people that look like Lorelai. And as the story wraps up, Michael and Dean are in the hospital, although Michael is in the hospital much longer than Dean, and when he leaves, he has a limp that doctors say he might have to live with for the rest of his life. Now Cassie is trying to mentally recover from everything that has been going on, coming to terms with the fact that not only her mother is dead, but now her aunt is dead as well, and also thinking about the fact that while Locke did admit to killing all these people, she did not admit to the murder of her mother, meaning her mother's killer is still out there. And now Cassie is feeling defeated because she's like, Locke was in the FBI, she had all these resources, she wanted to find Lorelai's killer, and the fact that she couldn't find her, how am I ever going to find her? And now where does the romance of this book leave off? Although I didn't touch on it much because it doesn't add much to the plot, it is something that kind of lingers in the background, which I'm sure is going to become more prevalent as the books go on. But Michael comes to Cassie and he's like, hey, I know there's a connection between you and Dean, but don't worry, I am a patient man and I will be waiting for you. And then Cassie admits in her inner monologue that she really has feelings for them both and she doesn't know what direction she wants to go in. And that is the end of The Naturals by Jennifer Lynn Barnes. I had so much fun reading this book. I can't wait for the next one. I feel like it's just going to be another fun YA time. It really gives me Good Girl's Guide to Murder vibes. Just like the whole thing gives me the similar vibes, and I absolutely love that because I love that series. So thank you guys so much for watching. If you want to see the next one, leave a comment and subscribe down below, and I will see you guys in the next video. Bye!
It was a long time from where we started, day to day. I had this feeling